The saga of attempting to machine the 4-column beam engine continues, not without trouble. The eccentric for this 4-column beam engine, according to the drawing, is supposed to be made out of cast iron, but there's none in the kit, and I haven't got a bit 1/8 in diameter, which is what I wanted. So I've got a long bolt, big bolt, so I'm going to cut a bit off the end of that, turn the threaded part off, which would comfortably leave me 1/8, and I shall make the sheave out of that. Sorry, meant to say I'll make the eccentric out of this bolt, not the sheave. The sheave is gunmetal and that is in the casting set. It's the sheave that doesn't seem to be included. Well, the eccentric is machined. That came out of this bolt, as I previously mentioned. A lot of work, really. And is it right? Well, I've got no idea. Knowing me, it's probably not right, but I won't know for certain until I use it on the beam engine and attempt to set the valve gear up, valve travel. So we'll have to wait and see. If it's all wrong, well, we'll have to start again, won't we? I'm machining the gunmetal eccentric sheave. I'm just boring out the sheave that's going to go around the eccentric on this 4-column beam engine. So the plan, I have this piece of steel which is the same outside diameter as the sheave, the eccentric that I've made, and the plan is that when this is a decent fit in there, which it more or less is, the sheave should now fit on the eccentric to which it's been machined for. So there we are, that fits in there, it's fairly good. So that's done. Great. So I'm just using my wobbler device to set up the casting for the eccentric sheave, to centre it to do the final bit of turning on the boss. So there we go. It's not perfect, but it's certainly good enough for what I'm doing. The dot on the end is centered fine. This is disproportionately awkward. The drawing calls for the eccentric rod to have a bit of a barrel shape, which I suppose in effect means you could have a taper at each end to meet at the 1/4 inch diameter in the middle. So the way I'm going about that is I have turned the 5BA threads at each end and also put a little bit of a centre and a dimple in each end, and I'll explain that a bit more in a moment, and then screwed a bit of brass on the opposite end to which I intend to cut the taper with a washer to grip this end in a chuck like so. So the 5BA thread, protected by the bit of brass and a washer, is put in the chuck, and then to deflect this end in order to cut a slight taper, I'm using my homemade sort of tailstock set over device with a small ball bearing in the end, which will press quite hard into the dimple that I've already created in the end of the rod, as it were, and the effect of that is to slightly push the rod in this direction, not by very much but a little bit, so that when the carriage moves along, in theory a slight taper will be cut. I dare say I'm doing it all wrong, but that's the way I'm doing it. Obviously need to take very fine cuts, because you know this doesn't hold the rod particularly firmly, so I'm going sort of 2 thou at a time and just reduce this end by about 30 thou. That's the plan. It's not brilliant, but it sort of works. I was tempted just to leave this flipping rod parallel, but anyway, whatever. I'm kind of pleased, because this sort of tailstock sectover device I made donkeys years ago never gets a lot of use, so it's kind of nice to find something to do with it, really. The trick, of course, with this arrangement is that the 2 holes, clearance and the drill and tap for the 10BA screws that will eventually lock the bearing cap in place, those holes must miss where the bearing is going to be, and that was what was wrong with the scrapper, unfortunately, and we won't go into it, but the holes appeared inside the bearing, idiot. So of course then the holding down screws couldn't be fitted because they interfered with everything else, and total shambles really. Never mind. I am not getting on at all well with this engine. I'm having a great deal of difficulty trying to get this parallel motion, or whatever it's called, to work correctly. The cylinder and its entablature is not bolted down. I've had to unbolt that because I think from where I had it originally it was in the wrong place, although I believe I followed the measurements on the drawing, but it doesn't want to be where I thought it would. These were the old holding bolts there, so that gives you a clue how much I've moved it along. Although I can now, if I hold everything, I can rotate the engine and things move up and down. There is binding in the piston rod, which I don't like, and I'm only wondering whether there's some error in the alignment of the beam that may be causing that, or I'm wondering if I've got some errors in the length of these columns which in effect are causing things to twist a bit. So I think the answer, partly, is to take everything apart and recheck all the measurements to see if I can detect something that doesn't seem quite right. I think I've mentioned before, I'm having a huge difficulty with the drawings. The supposed general arrangement is not as helpful as it might be, and as a general point, on all the drawings parts are not named, although on the detailed drawings there is a key, so you can look across the key and see, you know, that for example this part, whatever it was a coupling rod. What is missing fundamentally, of course, is any indication of what goes where, and that's where the general arrangement drawing falls down. I'm slowly making notes all over it to try and assist myself, but it's making life very difficult. I'm 78 years old, and it's difficult to find new challenges in life, I think, but I'm bound to say this engine is kind of reversing that thinking, and it's proving much more a monumental challenge than I ever thought it would be. Having moved house in the last sort of 9 months or so and set up a new workshop, I was looking for a quick project to get myself settled in. Well, this is the project, but it's not proving to be very quick or very easy. Unfortunately, my annotated version of the general arrangement drawing probably doesn't come out too well, but hopefully you get the idea.